Welcome to PERT Test Taking Strategies, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing integers. Let's get started. We're going to first talk about green rules and blue rules. The reason why I write the adding and subtracting numbers in green is because you can always relate adding and subtracting negative and positive numbers to money. If it's a negative amount, then you owe somebody that money. If it's a positive amount, then you actually have that amount in your pocket or in your wallet. So if you ever get confused, always try to remember that you can relate this to money. And whenever you relate it to money, it always seems to make sense. Whenever we look at a problem, such as this one down here, you are always going to want to ask yourself several questions. How are the terms separated? Are they separated with a plus sign, or are they separated with multiplication? And when you ask yourself that question, then you're going to run through all of these rules. If there is a plus sign that's separating the two terms, then you're going to follow the green rules, which are right here. If there is a multiplication sign or a division sign separating the terms, then you're going to follow the 4 blue rules down here. The biggest problem on the PERT test is that kids hop back and forth between the two rules. Try to remember whenever there's a green box, and you'll see that my strategy is to draw a green box whenever we're working in the green rules. So whenever we're in the green box, only follow these 2 rules. If we have a blue box, then you're only going to follow these 4 rules. Try to train yourself to be very diligent in that process, and you'll be able to earn that score you want on the PERT. So let's first look at this rule. If the numbers have the same sign, then you're going to add the numbers, and you're going to keep the sign as the answer. So look at this problem right here. We have 2 numbers, negative 31 minus 32, or I'm sorry, minus 72. When I look at these 2, I see that a subtraction sign is what is separating the terms. And since that is a subtraction sign, that doesn't mean you're going to subtract. It just means you're going to follow the green rules. So when you get to the green rules, ask yourself, do the numbers have the same sign, or do they have the different signs? They have the same sign. They're both negative. I know you may think that this isn't a negative number, but it actually is. You could change that plus sign, or I'm sorry, you can change that minus sign to plus a negative. And then now you see that the 2 numbers are actually both negative. Therefore, they have the same sign, so we're going to add the numbers. 31 plus 72 is 103. Now, when you get to the answer and have to determine whether it's positive or negative, you need to follow the part of the rule where it says keep the sign. So we're going to keep the sign as the answer, and our answer becomes negative 103. Let's look at the second rule. If the numbers have different signs, which means one is positive and one is negative, then you're going to subtract the numbers, and the answer will have the sign of the larger number. This is the only time you use the rule of the larger number. And try to remember, even though you see that plus sign, that only means you follow the green rules. Once you see the plus sign, you ask yourself, do I have the same sign or a different sign? Now let's look at the second rule. If the numbers have different signs, meaning one is positive and one is negative, then you're going to subtract those numbers. The answer will have the sign of the larger number. This rule sometimes gets thrown in down here. So be very careful to understand that this larger number rule only applies in this situation when the numbers have different signs and they were separated by either an addition or subtraction. So let's look closely at this problem. We have negative 31 plus 72. So I see that plus sign and I'm asking myself, okay, what do I have? Do I have the same sign and I'm going to add them, or do I have different signs and I'm going to subtract them? Looking at these, I have one negative and one positive, so I have different signs. I'm going to subtract these numbers. 72 minus 31 is 41. Now, when you get to the answer and you have to determine whether it's positive or negative, you look to see which one is larger. If 31 is larger than 72, the answer would have been negative. But 72 is larger than 31, therefore our answer is positive. Here's another example. 42 minus 58. I see that subtraction sign, so I'm going to follow my green rules. Ask myself, do I have the same sign and I'm going to add, or do I have different signs and I'm going to subtract? I have a positive 42 and a negative 58. So therefore I have different signs. So I'm going to subtract my numbers. 58 minus 42 is 16. When I go to figure out is it negative or positive, look to see which one's larger. 58 is larger than 42, and he's the one with the negative sign, so my answer is going to be negative. Now let's look at the blue rules. The blue rules occur whenever you have multiplication or division separating the terms. So if you look right here, I have positive 2 times a negative 6. And that is going to follow the blue rules. So we have a positive number times a negative number. Right here, here's an example. Positive times negative is going to equal a negative. So when I go to work this problem out, my answer would be a negative number. And I know 2 times 6 is 12, so I know my answer for this one would be negative 12. Whenever you have a negative times a negative, that answer is positive. So negative 9 times negative 2 equals a positive 18. A lot of kids confuse this rule with this rule up here. Try very hard to remember that if we are in the green rules, or if we are adding and subtracting, the negative sign stays all the way through the problem. If we are in blue rules, and we're multiplying and dividing, then the negative sign disappears, and that term becomes positive. Negative times a positive is negative, and positive times a negative is also negative. For the most part, you guys all remember this one. This was the very first one you learned. Positive times positive equals positive. If you would like to see me go through this problem right here using order of operations and these two rules, please watch the PERT Test Taking Strategies order of operations video. If you would like more practice on working with integers, visit emathlab.com, click on Basics, Understanding Numbers, and then work with the flashcards, positive and negative numbers. It is a great way to really practice these two rules. Thank you for watching.